I really just make it a point in the sales process to say we don't start until we know everything, because any decision that isn't made is a potential for delay in production. On every project, the contractor isn't telling you that this is the most important part. They don't really are following through what they're supposed to be doing.
Hey, welcome to the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com. My name is Todd Dawalt. That's spelled D-A-W-A-L-T. I'm your host. And here at Construction Leading Edge, we're all about helping construction business owners have more freedom, more impact, and more wealth by systematizing your business. Think self-managing company, a business that runs without you. Here's what you're going to get today. This is an interview with Nate Mielke, owner of Skäpar Design Build in Minnesota, and you'll hear about how a lawsuit and a blown out knee helped Nate make some key transitions in his business, why turning down work can be the best thing for your business, his 3-phase approach to projects and how far he goes for free, how he subcontracts pre-construction services on his remodel projects, what he's learned about himself from doing the Colby assessments, and what he's learned about his job and the mismatch between how he's wired and the job that he's been doing, how he's a visionary who wants to have systems and processes, but hates creating them, and what he did to work around that. We also talk about his experience in our Systematize Your Construction Business program and what being in our CEO Alliance has done for him. And before we get into that interview, I do want to let you know about something that's relatively new here. If you like this podcast and you'd like to connect with other like-minded construction business owners who listen to it, to be able to share ideas and resources with them, if you'd like access to exclusive content, Q&A calls, and occasional training from our team, then you should check out the brand spanking new Construction Leading Edge community. This group is exclusively for construction business owners who want a profitable, self-managing business so you can have more time to spend with your family, more profits, and more peace of mind. So if you're into being a better construction entrepreneur, if you're into having greater impact, creating wealth, and if you're into personal development, then this is the place for you. Go to constructionleadingedge.com/join to get all the details on the new Construction Leading Edge community. That's constructionleadingedge.com/join, JOIN. Now, let's get to my conversation with Nate Mielke, owner of Skäpar Design Build. Enjoy. Nate, welcome to the podcast, man. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks, Todd, for having me here.
I'll let you introduce yourself, share a little bit about your business, what you do, and what part of the world you're located in.
Nate Mielke, Skäpar Design Build. We do interior models and additions in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We have a strong market here, and we really like being where we're at.
What's the name of your company again? And I remember you telling me the name of your company. If you could explain that a little bit.
We were searching around for a name that kind of suited kind of our Norwegian heritages and up here in the Midwest. And Skäpar means it's creative. It kind of has loosely to create. So it kind of fits kind of what we're about is we like to create things.
And how long have you been in business?
14 years. I got laid off in 2009 and started for myself, and slowly picked up small project after small project and started turning into bigger things.
Let's go back to the beginning. What were you doing before you started your business?
I've been in the industry probably for 25, 26 years now. I was working with my 2 uncles, a small remodeling company here in Minneapolis, that we were doing everything from our own foundations, framing, siding, windows, roofing, exteriors, drywall, tile work, cabinetry, flooring, everything. So it was a really good learning experience. And the old school mindset was to, if we can do it, let's do it. Quickly kind of found out after I started my business that was probably not the best business decision, but it got us through. Long term, it wasn't a sustainable system.
Why is that? Why do you feel like it wasn't sustainable?
Mostly because you can only do one thing at a time in that situation. You're in the field, you're doing the work, you're doing the thing, but you can only do one thing at a time. So I think when I started realizing that it's better to hire people to do certain aspects of it, my life became a lot better, easier. Just kind of just get out of that. I have to do it. I have to do it. I have to do it.
Talk about that transition. You mentioned you got laid off in 2009. Walk us through that process of like, what were you doing when you got laid off? And then walk us through the thought process of starting your own business.
I'm not one to necessarily just sit on my hands and do nothing or collect unemployment. I think I collected unemployment for about 2, 3 months. Started an LLC, got my general contracting license, and then just started picking up small handyman jobs because in 2009 the market was really tight and there was not much there. So being that I was able to do drywall repairs, do painting, do trim work, do tile work, do all the things I needed to do, it fit pretty well for a period of time where I could make a decent hourly rate. And then, it really, got me going and, started picking up a bathroom here and a bathroom there and slowly became kitchens and, multi-level projects. And about 2016, I had real issue with, just not understanding anything about running a business. I had a consultant that was really helpful. He was a retiring contractor at a very high level in the area, Terry Strike, and he was instrumental in getting me to the point of working on sales and helping me to job cost and understand the bookkeeping side of things. Was instrumental in helping me make that transition from being a doer to being a thinker in the office and being a business owner.
It sounds like the way you got started was doing everything yourself, and that's the way you started in the industry. And then when you were in your business, you were doing everything yourself. It sounds like your mentor helped you a lot, or this consultant helped you make that transition. But frankly, a lot of people stay stuck in the "I have to do it all myself" mentality. What led you out of that into the I need to hire other people to do things for me, and I need to stop being the only one who's doing it? What helped you make that transition?
When I had a lawsuit on my hands that I needed at that point in time to get my act straight, um, it helped me get my contracts figured out, kind of like forced an issue with being a business owner. My being in the field all the time, I wasn't able to do the business side of things like I should have been doing because there are 2 full-time jobs. How do you do 2 full-time jobs? And I was not putting the effort into running the business. I was putting my effort into getting the projects done. Probably the other big thing was my knee kind of blew up on me, and I was 39 years old, and I was like, okay, either I have to double down on this and make the effort to be a business owner and get this thing figured out, or just go do something else completely. So I asked around. I ended up with Terry would help me kind of get that figured out, and I needed somebody like that around me to help me become who I needed to be.
A lawsuit and a blown out knee were pivotal in
They
that
were
transition. Is that what I'm hearing? Yeah.
sometimes. I mean, I learn by pain most often. So
Yeah, there's a saying that success does not a good teacher make. I think that's the case for me too. We tend to learn we learn by pain. So talk about your team now. Tell us a little bit about how many people are on your team, and how are you self-performing work? Do you subcontract everything? Talk a little bit about that.
I've been a one-man show for 14 years, and I have subcontract everything out now to everybody. I'm about 5% still doing punch list stuff and kind of filling in gaps where I need to fill in gaps in the field. Right now, I'm project managing and doing sales. I've got a good pre-construction team that I subcontract out. They've really kind of come around and kind of filled in a big gap for me. My architect and my designers, they fill in that gap for me in collecting all the information, getting me all the stuff, doing a lot of the communication, and they've been very helpful in getting me the information I need to make jobs run smoothly.
So you're probably maybe this one of two or three people I know who successfully run a remodeling business as a one-man show. Most people would say, well, if you're going to do remodeling, you have to have carpenters on staff at least to be able to do things. Why do you want to be a one-man show? What was behind the way you designed your business?
I have been thinking that I am in need of a project manager. So that's where I'm going. And I think some of the reason why I joined SYCB and am in the CEO Alliance group is to develop a process and develop a system so that somebody can fill those shoes for me. I have been doing it. Most of it's just like I didn't have a system in place. I didn't feel comfortable, didn't have the knowledge to hire somebody, didn't have the right amount of workload, didn't have the foresight in how to manage money. The revenue maximizers helped me in that a ton so I can see, oh, revenue's increasing. I can easily fill in a spot for a project manager and it doesn't affect my bottom line. I did recently, Monish put me in contact with Justin Landry, who has started the process with me going through the Colby test and putting an ad out there for me. That's kind of where I'm at. I've done it for a long period of time, but I've realized, I think at the advance that we did in Del Mar, we did the exercise of important, not important, have to do, don't have to do, but important or whatever categories. And we wrote all the things we do during the day and all the stuff that's part of our role. And I wrote down all the things that I don't like to do in the one column. And I wrote down the things that I like to do. And it made it very clear that I need to hire somebody to take care of all that stuff on my list that I don't like to do. So that was the spark in me to start thinking about who it is that I'm looking for that role. And the Colby test has really kind of clarified that for me because my job description and who I innately am is not the same person.
Where's the mismatch between your personality and your job description?
I'm a quick start number 9, and my job description is 8, and fact finding and follow through are my 2 heavy ones, and my quick start and my implementer are pretty low on that number. So it's almost exactly opposite of what my job is.
Yeah. So I'm an 8 fact finder or 6 follow through. I'm 3 on quick start, which I'm not sure I agree with that one, but maybe I forced myself to be a quick start. Yeah. So this is really interesting. This Colby assessment is kind of fascinating because I think it illuminates like why people struggle as construction business owners, right? So for example, if you're off the chart on quick start, so that means you're like ready, fire, aim, let's rock and roll. What were you on Fact Finder?
I was a 3.
You're like, let's do just a little bit of research. Boom, let's go. Right. That seems to be like it could cause some problems. As you look at your Colby results, what became apparent to you? Like, oh, this is why I fill in the blank. What did it tell you?
It confirmed in my mind the things that I already do and innately already kind of just do is like, let's find the shortest path to get to where we need to go without all of the extra information that's unnecessary. It reminds me of being in high school. I don't think I did much work of anything other than 5 minutes before class or found somebody with the information to get me the information. So it's just who I am. Like it's sometimes the useless task is just the useless task. And like, let's skip this whole step and move to the next one. I found though in construction, you need to also make sure that you verify and double check. And I force myself to verify and double check, but it's not my bent, and work is actually work for me, not quite as enjoyable as I want it to be.
What do you feel like are your strengths now that you know where you're at and that you're high on quick start? What's your unique ability as a construction business owner? Or in other words, how is that a strength for you?
I think I've realized that I am definitely a visionary, and I am a motivator of people to get that stuff done for me. It confirmed in me that it's like, oh, I am like, I can be, I'm a pretty high I as well as a pretty high S in the disc assessment. People seem to get around it and go with me.
I want to go back to something you said that you are subcontracting or outsourcing pre-construction, which I think is really smart. What are some of the keys? Like what's the typically 80% of the results come from 20% of the steps in a process. What would you say is the 80-20 when it comes to outsourcing pre-construction work to somebody else?
I think a lot of it's the relationships that I've built over the last few years with the architect and the designers that I like to work with. And then really engaging them onto like what it looks like for them. How do you feel about this project? What do you think? And then, letting them do their thing. It's Jessica's got a really good process for checking off all the boxes and then getting me the reports. And it's like, that's been amazing. Like I've got, every project, it's a full binder of like everything that sits on site so that people, all my contractors know exactly what to do. And that's been huge on getting that off my plate. Details are already there. I don't have to make a decision. There's no trim that has to be determined as it's already in the millwork and door package. The paint colors are already determined. Hardware's in there. Like there's no questions when we start other than like, hey, do you have a preference this way or that way? Or, hey, we didn't talk about this closet. Those types of things are pretty minor. So when it comes down to production, I get called way, way less than I used to.
Some people would say, that sounds great, but the customer wants to talk to me. I'm the builder. I'm the remodeler. I'm the face of the company. I could never let somebody else guide my customers through the selections process. What would you say to those people? Like, what's in it for you to outsource that?
Well, time. Time, like let somebody else do something that they're good at. Unless the contractor's really good at the selection process, maybe they're best suited for that. But I think the time that I get back from not having to be in the mix of trying to determine what the hardware is or what the door style or what the sticking is on the doors or the trim detail or the tile or the edge details, there's 300 choices or decisions that have to get made in the kitchen. Like I don't want to make all those decisions. So I think time back is huge for having somebody else do that.
And did you struggle at all with letting go of that, or was that something you were glad to hand off?
I was happy to get rid of that. You know what I mean? It's like I don't want to deal with those details. Like going faster and getting started is what I want to do. So if somebody else can take care of all that stuff, I do have a hard time waiting around for them to get all the information. Sometimes it's just like, okay, we're waiting for clients to make one final decision to get that report. But we've kind of stuck to our guns on not proposing the final contract without all of the information in it. That's been huge.
One of the things we talk about a lot is the just enough to start trap, doing just enough to get started, just enough to get an estimate out, maybe just enough to get a contract signed, and it has a bunch of allowances and gaps in it, and just enough to get the project started. Is that something you dealt with in the past?
Yes. When I was starting out, it was like, oh, we just get this thing started because we needed the work and we needed the income. So we just have to start. We'll figure it out on the way. I think 2017, 2018, I made a real concerted effort to make sure we had all decisions made ahead of time. And it was kind of loosely followed. And I knew there was some gaps in my process. That's primarily the reason I wanted to kind of refine my skills with SYCB. Is like, okay, I need encouragement to say, hey, okay, stay the course, stay the course, stay the course. It's been helpful for me to really hold that course and be like, no, we're not starting until we have every answer. It's a hard, long road sometimes, but it's pays huge on the other side of things because everything's figured out. Like the guys in the field know what they're doing. And I've always equated this to, well, we know what all of the bombs are that are going to go off because we've done this before. If there's a decision that has to get made, let's make that decision before we start. Let's figure out what the problems are with that decision, if there is any. Figure it out. There it is. One bomb is diffused. It's gone. Like we're not waiting for a decision on a countertop. We're not waiting for a decision on a tile. We're not waiting for a decision on paint colors or a stain match or any of that kind of stuff. it's already been decided, it's already been signed off on. All we're doing now is just putting it together, which is now pretty easy instead of before where it's like, oh, I got a phone call. Hey, what are we doing here? Hey, the panic phone call to the homeowner, like, hey, we haven't figured out this, this door. We need to order this like yesterday. All that stuff goes away and people feel much more confident in what they're getting. I feel more confident in what the price is going to be, and I know what I'm going to make. They know what they're going to get, and it's a win-win for everybody.
Sounds pretty good on the surface, but there are probably some people listening thinking, okay, what I'm taking from this is I have to tell my customer who's writing me a big check, I have to tell them, I'm not going to start your project until you make every decision. How do you set that expectation with the client up front so they know it's coming?
I think during the SYCB process, we talked about this is how we do it. Went through the exercise, 3-4 programs or whatever it was, and I basically made a document of like, hey, this is how we do this all the way through. And then I basically have a basically a client facing, this is how we do it document. And I've got a 3-phase process where we do a feasibility agreement where we come up with concept plans and a budget. So 2-3 schematics of like what could be, what could not be, what do you think about this? Maybe 1 or 2 renderings that would show the space at a very rudimentary level. And we come up, clients like go back and forth, and as that's getting developed, we have a budget that we're a range budget between X and X for framing, or X and X between for cabinetry, based on other projects or based on kind of where I think it's going to go. And then in the second phase of it, I've got this document that says, feasibility, pre-construction. The pre-construction agreement is the most important part of this project. On every project, if a contractor isn't telling you that this is the most important part, they don't really are following through what they're supposed to be doing. I really just make it a point in the sales process to say, we don't start until we know everything, because any decision that isn't made is a potential for delay in production. Pretty simple. Most people are just like, oh, that sounds great. Like, we'll make the decisions. And the part of it is, if we start tomorrow, we're still going to end 8 months from now. If we start 4 months from now, we'll still end up 8 months from now. So there's no difference in the actual timeline of total production. It's just we're in your house less than if we just spend the time up front doing the work.
How far do you go for free in that process?
Maybe initial site visit if it seems like it might be the right project or the fit. We have a qualification process that we go through to see if we're a good fit for them, if we're a good fit for if they're a good fit for us. So depending on kind of where they are in the process, either we're charging for a detailed proposal that kind of gives them a range of where we think this is going to go. Just to kind of get it on paper to say, this is what I think your project's going to cost based on what you're telling us. And then if they don't have a plan, we're coming up with schematics and the budget at that same time. And that's usually, depending on the project, $1,500 to $2,500. Could be more depending on like if it's a larger scale project or not. And then once they decide on that the concepts and the budget work, we do a pre-construction agreement where we're doing 3 to 5% down of the total range budget. And that's really where we get down to the nuts and bolts of the project, where we're making the selections, working on the schedule, doing bid requests, doing investigation, consulting with building inspectors, getting the engineering, getting the final CDs in place, getting the permit set, reviewing selection reports. That whole process, probably takes anywhere from like 2 to 4 months, depending on the project. Could be a little bit longer, and depending on how fast people are moving on their selections as well.
In your opinion, what's the worst part about doing free estimates?
The last probably 4 or 5 I've done free estimates for, kind of like out of the scarcity mindset or whatever I did, free estimate for somebody. I don't think I've gotten any one of them. They're either tire kickers, they're not really interested. Somebody's willing to at least pay for an estimate or a detailed proposal. At least they're engaged on it on some level. I've got skin in the game. They've got skin in the game. We've got a commitment together. Like, I'm going to provide you something. You're going to pay me for this. It's a fair transaction. I've not received really any work out of a free estimate in a long time.
And the good news is you don't have to. You very successfully avoiding free estimates. Some people would say, and I've actually heard people say this, is they're design builders and they have a very robust design process, and they want to get people locked into a construction agreement as quickly as possible without making selections. And they feel like we don't want to introduce all the selections process until after we sign the construction contract. So we're going to put some allowances in there, and we're going to maybe skip some of the pre-construction process to get a construction contract locked down. Then we'll make the selections. What, in your opinion, what are some of the biggest problems that are caused by that approach?
If you blow your allowance by accident or you miss something, that's always you lose a little bit of trust with somebody. I think the pre-construction process, I think, works a little bit better because they're buying into it slowly. They're buying into it. They're like, oh, well, we know what this is going. We're going to make the selection, determine what the budget is. If they want to take that part of the scope of work out, they can take that part of the scope of work out. It's a very collaborative effort between everybody, between the designer, myself, and the homeowner. And I think people feel a whole lot better about the process than getting into a contract with somebody and then that price just keeps on going and keeps on going. And now they're on the hook and kind of leaves a bad taste in people's mouths, I think.
When you go the allowance route, then if there's an issue, if I'm the customer and you're my builder, then I would say, Nate, your allowance was messed up. Like, you gave me a $4 a square foot allowance, and I can't buy anything for less than $6 a square foot. So it's your allowance that's messed up. But if you're making selections during pre-construction, and then if I'm making selections during pre-construction as the client, you can say, well, Todd, your Mr. and Mrs. Dawalt, your selections are coming in at this price. And your budget, it's the customer's budget as opposed to a problem with the contractor's allowance. And I've been on the other end where I've gotten into deals, especially with real estate brokers on commercial projects, where they'll include a TI allowance on a project, and it's like a third of what it should be. And when do you find out that your allowance is wrong? Halfway through the project. It's like, well, what are we going to do now? We have to have plumbing fixtures, we have to have light fixtures, we have to have carpet. So now you just have to dig into your pocket because you have no options, and it's kind of a gun to your head moment. So yeah, I completely agree. So for those of you who are thinking, I don't want to mess up the customer experience, like getting into selections and all that stuff before we sign a contract, what you're doing is just kicking that can down the road and creating a situation where you may put a gun to your client's head and say, sorry, but to get any kind of flooring, you're going to have to dig into your pocket. It's going to be $100,000 over your budget.
Right.
And finding that out in the middle of the project, that's really bad for the customer experience.
The customer experience is probably more important than the final product.
Why do you say that?
People remember the hiccups. They remember that you weren't trustworthy. They remember that you weren't communicating. They remember that, the process was goofy. It was chaotic. It was out of control. If the process, the final product could be the same thing that we might provide, but was the process a whole lot easier to get through? Are they going to refer you to their friends? Are they going to refer you to your neighbors because you have a process in place that brings them through it together? Like, we're doing this together. I think that gets you a ton of bandwidth with people. So we talked about budget. We were close to that budget. We worked through whatever that was. We determined what that was. There was a fixed price. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. They ended on time. And the budget and the final number was exactly what they quoted at the beginning. They like that a whole lot more. Even if it is a number that is a high number to begin with, it's better to be there. When I'm talking with people, I bid things to do the job, not to get the job. So I have that conversation with people. It's like, hey, this allowance might be high on the preliminary feasibility agreement, but you have room to move around within here and things may come up or down or plus or minus a little bit. I'm pretty open with them up front. Like, hey, this is a large number. I might be larger than everybody else, but we have room to kind of finesse this in a way that gets you what you want.
Hey, it's Todd here, and we have a couple of free resources that we want to get in your hands. First is our free training video, Get Out of Your Construction Business, How to Make It Run Without You This Year. Here's what you're going to get when you sign up for this free training video. You'll learn about the JETS thinking trap, which stands for just enough to start. That's probably keeping you stuck working in your business, and it keeps you stuck in firefighting mode, and it affects probably 90% of construction businesses. You'll also learn about the first few crucial steps you want to take if you want to spend more time working on your business instead of being stuck working in it. And you'll learn what nailing the handoff looks like and how it will help you eliminate 80% of your preventable schedule delays and profit bleeds. You can get your hands on that free video over at constructionleadingedge.com/get out. constructionleadingedge.com/GETOUT. And the second thing is a question. Here's a question. Is your business structured for success, or is it designed for failure? We found a study and found that there are 5 root causes of contractor failure, 5 primary reasons that successful contractors self-destruct. All right. This is information that we feel like every construction business owner should know about. You should know about it for 2 reasons. If you're a general contractor, 1, you need to find out if your business is structured for success. And if you're a general contractor and you have subcontractors, you may want to ask this question: are your subs structured for success or structured for failure? And if you would like to evaluate your business to see if it's designed for success, the next step is to apply for a business evaluation call with my team. We'll go through these 5 root causes of failure, evaluate your business, and then give you some pointers, highlight the red flags, the early indicators that you may want to focus your energy on. And if it makes sense, we can talk through the details of our Systematize Your Construction Business program that will ensure it is structured for success. If you would like to schedule your free business evaluation, go to constructionleadingedge.com/apply, APPLY, or simply go to our website, constructionleadingedge.com, and tap the Apply Now button. Now, let's get back to the episode. My favorite question to ask somebody, if somebody's like, well, Todd, how can I possibly get paid for pre-construction? I'll say, just ask this question to your customer. When do you want to find out what you're going to get in your project and how much it's going to cost? Before you get started or in the middle of the project? If you want to find out in the middle of the project, then sign that construction contract, plug in a bunch of allowances, and get rolling. If you want to find out what you're going to get and how much it will cost before you get started, then sign a pre-construction agreement and hire a contractor who has a robust pre-construction process. And then people are like, I get it. Yeah. So let's shift gears. Let's talk a little bit about Operation Dignity International. This is a charitable organization that you're pretty involved with. Tell us a little bit about the charity, what you do, what it does, and how you got involved with it.
Charity is probably not necessarily the word that we like to use for that, because there's a connotation with that. There's a lot of charities out there that go and dig a well for somebody that then it falls apart and it doesn't work, or they buy a tractor for somebody and then they don't put oil in it and then it doesn't work and it sits in the field. So charity is, I feel like, more that way. We're coming alongside a couple villages in a medical center in Ghana, West Africa, kind of on the mid section of Ghana, West Africa. Recently, we just got back from there. I really wanted to go see and visualize what we're doing there. We have a medical center that we're teaming up with there that services 9 to 10 different villages surrounding that community center. And they are probably staffed about correctly, but their space is really quite tight. So we've got probably a 3-phase build out that we're going to do for the clinic. One being that we're going to start a lab for them so that they can get the testing that they need done within a couple hours versus 3 or 4 days or 5 or 6 days, where they have to keep the the sample refrigerator, go to the hospital, get the results, and send it back. They'll be able to head off a lot of diseases quite a bit quicker. The community that we're in is by Necranza. SYCB is the medical center that we're going to be helping out, or that we have been helping out. So we're going to be putting in a lab for them so that they can do these tests on site. Mostly the tests like typhoid, malaria, STDs, and then hypertension are probably the big things that we saw that we were over there, were the main things. Probably a few other things that I'm not aware of because I'm not a medical professional. Rashid, the medical director, he has a good solution to a couple of the issues. We're going to put in basically a shed, like an open air shed for they have community events, and then basically make it their waiting room so they can keep people kind of comfortable outside while they're seeing people inside. And that's like phase one, is to kind of like free up some space for the lab by building the shed outside so that people can have a waiting room. There's a leaky roof that we're replacing and a bunch of paint that we're going to do this thing. Second phase of this project is to build out the medical center, make it, I think, probably double in size so they can see more patients while they're there. And then, well, part of the first phase, we're going to put a well in. Second phase, I think we're going to start putting the septic system in. And then a third phase would be a dormitory for the resident nurses that come into town. They have, essentially, the government pays for them to go to the university to get educated as a nurse, and then they have a servitude agreement with the government to go work in a clinic for, I think, 5 years to kind of pay back the loan that they got from the government. They're looking to provide residency at this medical center for the nurses that are serving the communities around them.
And how did you get involved with this organization?
In one of my networking groups that we have, Kathy was the executive director, looked at me and she's like, "Do you want to help us?" And I said, "Yes." So one thing leads to another, and you know how those things go. If you're needed and you can do some stuff, you're used to. So we had a fundraiser, a couple fundraisers this summer for the trip over. We bought them a couple motorcycles to help kind of visit the villages around around the area. Recently, we just went there as part of the fundraising efforts to probably saw about 300 patients in about 5 days, and then they've got a for-profit farm that they're teaching people how to farm the American way to kind of make it mass produced versus like chilling around a tree or in a hillside or something like that, where it's all hand farmed, plucking hand. So the organization that ODI and Gus Farming have been developing this farm for about 3 years. And I got to sit on a tractor and plant some corn with one of the guys, and it was really interesting to just hear what was going on and see kind of how they were doing it. And about 500 acres they're farming right now. Have an opportunity for probably another 2,000 or 3,000 acres that they're looking to do. I think they're trying to get this thing off the ground before they move to the next step. But it's a pretty cool operation that they're doing over there.
So you recently spent 10 days there. What were some of couple of your biggest takeaways, whether it's things you're grateful for, things you didn't really have an appreciation for, but what were some of your biggest takeaways after spending 10 days there?
Trying to understand the mindset of people and how to encourage people to change, how to show people that there's a need to change, because as simple as drinking water out of the creek that's downstream from the village. You have typhoid running rampant because they just don't understand that going and getting water out of the well is better than drinking water out of the creek. And simple, just hygiene things that just, I was kind of surprised that people haven't figured that out yet. But, like we're here in America where like I don't drink out of a stream because I know I get sick. That one was interesting. I'm still trying to figure out how do you teach people, how do you train people, how do you show people? And I think people need to hear things 10 times before they make a change. So I think it's just repetition.
Old habits are definitely hard to break.
I did meet one of the nationals that is there, Philip. Philip is got the kindest heart, really wants to be there, wants to help people, wants to kind of be the face of ODI in this area for us. And really an awesome guy. I love him.
Let's shift gears. So you've been working with our team here at Construction Leading Edge for a while. What were some of the biggest challenges or issues that you were dealing with that led you to reach out to us initially?
I didn't necessarily have a system in place that was dialed in. It was getting work done. It was 75% there, 85% there. And I knew that I was going to have to bring on a project manager at some point in time. And I needed to have a format for that. That was one of the primary reasons why I joined SYCB is like, how do I get to the next level? I need to surround myself with a group of people that is thinking big. And I think I just needed to refine what I was doing. Like the pre-construction process. I tell people what the pre-construction process was, but I just didn't write it down. Now it's written down. Now it's in a schedule. So it's like, oh, okay, here I can show a client, like, hey, if we hit play today, this is what this means for the next 4 months. Is that what you want to do? And this is our starting point. I think that's been a huge on the selling side of things, where it's like, oh, they've thought about this. They've done this 100 times. They put this in a process. They put it on a calendar. Now we just need to fall in line with the calendar.
As you mentioned, you're planning on bringing a project manager on board. You wanted to have a format or a system for them to follow. What were you concerned might happen if you brought somebody on without that format in place?
Relying on myself to tell this other person what to do. Like, I didn't want to be just the project manager behind the project manager. I needed to have a system that we could just follow, like, that could be repeated, and not having to reinvent the wheel every time.
If there was a moment, take us to the moment where you realized that the systems and processes you were implementing were actually working. Like, was there a moment where you were like, huh, this shit's actually working?
It was one of my sales meetings. I think it was like, oh, this really is helping me sell jobs. It really is helping me sell jobs, because it's like, having a pre-construction process, I can show somebody and say, hey, this is what you're going to get from us during this whole time. Like, here's the layout of how we're going to get through this. And I think when people or contractors come in and they don't do that, I think there's a level of like ambiguity as to what people are going to get. And I don't think people are as certain with wanting to pay, $12,000 for the pre-construction agreement. They want to be a little more certain about what they're going to get.
Some people would say, you know what, I need a little room to move and shake. I don't want to have a process that I follow. I don't really want to be all that articulate during the sales process. I want to paint with a broad stroke and, leave myself some room to wiggle. How do you find that having a pre-construction process helped you to sell? Because some people would think that's going to get in the way.
Yeah, I mean, you have to kind of feel who your client is. Some people want to know more information than other people. More people just want to sit there and chit chat and make sure that you're the right fit for them personally. It's kind of mirroring and matching what people are doing. And some people, you could see them kind of glossing over if you're going too in the details. Other people just want to sit there and chat. Other people want to know all of the details. I think there's still some flexibility in the sales process. It's just, you're going to follow the process regardless of whether or not they want to hear about the process. Some people just want to say, hey, I have a process. Other people want to see the process.
So this goes back to that Colby assessment. We have the high fact finders, and then we have the people who are high on quick start. So the high fact finders are the engineer types who want to see the process. They're really slow to make decisions. There's the high quick start people who are like, I just want to feel the vibe, make sure you're a good guy, and then we're ready to rock and roll. When you first meet somebody, how do you assess where they are, if they're a fact finder or if they're more on the quick start, want to feel the vibe. Any tips there?
If they're a bookkeeper, a CPA, or a lawyer, or a engineer, they're probably pretty C-oriented or pretty fact-finder oriented. And you basically just have to mirror what they're going to be looking for, and you have to accept that that's who they are. If somebody just wants to sit and chit-chat for 15 minutes, they're pretty much that person that's just going to, like, get to know you and figure out if you're trustworthy that way. It's sales, understanding sales a little bit. I've done a little bit of sales training, so it's been helpful to kind of like, okay, this person really short, gave short answers, they're D personality or fact finding personality. They just want a quick decision. Those types of people. It's just really whatever they're doing, you kind of just mirror what they're about and kind of feel what. So it's just mirroring and matching is pretty much what my recommendation would be.
So selling is very different than estimating. And I think a lot of people conflate the two as being the same. Like, well, what do you mean sales? I'm going to kick out an estimate, email it to them, text them a number, and see what happens. And that's completely missing out on selling. If you're just kicking out estimates, you're missing out. We don't have time to get into all of that, but you need to go do some sales training and understand that selling often has very little, if anything, to do with estimating. So completely different processes, different skill sets. Yep.
I'm interviewing them. I mean, as much as they're interviewing me. So I'm understanding of, okay, do they have the money? Do they have the right time frame? Are they realistic about it? Is it somebody that I'm going to have to deal with for a year and a half? Like, this person, we have to have this relationship as probably the most important part of things. Everything else is kind of secondary. The relationship and the trust level there has to be a two-way street. If it's not evident and they're suspicious, they're not a good fit. And I can just say, you know what, this might not be a good fit for us. You might want to find somebody else. I mean, you might have to walk away from, a $500,000 project. They're not going to play the game like you want to play the game. You can find somebody else to play the game you want to play.
And that's a really good posture. The way I've heard it said is always be the buyer. So even if you're the builder, the contractor, the service provider, always be the buyer, which means this is the two-way transaction. I am going to give you my time and energy and resources and expertise and take risk to provide a service to you, and you're going to write a check. So this is an equal exchange of value. So I'm the buyer here as well. And I think people can feel that. They're like, oh, wow, this guy doesn't seem desperate, or this lady doesn't seem desperate for my work. Everybody else is like falling all over themselves just trying to get a signed contract that elevates you in their mind and creates some higher perceived value.
So a little bit of that walkaway presence, even if you need the job, sometimes just pretending that you don't need the job is the way to do it.
Let's talk about you went through SYCB a while back. What were some of the most impactful changes that you made in your business? Like, what were some of the specific, the 2 or 3 top systems or processes that you've learned from our program that have been most impactful for you?
First of all, sticking to my guns and having a no free estimate policy. I think that was just it confirmed in my mind that that's the way I need to go. The weekly planner that we're doing now has been awesome. Writing down what our MITs are and what are our performance goals for this quarter, how are we going to get there, and then focusing hard on those things because they are the big rocks that go in the jar. A lot of times, like, I'll spend half a day just going through emails, and those are just the sand, and I can't put anything else in there because I've done all of the small things. So switching the mindset of filling the big rocks in first and then piling in the small stuff later. So the MITs, I think, was helpful for me just to go, okay, performance goals, like what's going to drive revenue, which projects do I need to get on first. The revenue maximizers kind of clarified that for me. Yeah, the revenue maximizers have been amazing for me. I'll put it that way, just to forecast and see, because I haven't been able to forecast properly before. So I think MIT's weekly planners, and the revenue maximizer are probably the key pieces for me.
You mentioned that you're a visionary, and what I found is people who are high on the quick start and are visionaries. They have big ideas, big goals. They think at a high level. They want to have systems and processes in place, but they would rather get punched in the face than have to sit down and create systems and processes.
Oh, 100%.
Does that describe you? Is that how you feel
Oh, yeah.
about actually doing that?
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
So how did the SYCB program help you through that process of achieving those systems and processes without all the pain?
Some of the format was already there for me, so it was like I didn't have to create the Excel spreadsheet to plug in the information into the Excel spreadsheet. So just even that portion of things was huge, because it's like, oh, I just plug in the answer in, versus like developing the Excel spreadsheet for the information to go into the sheet. So just some of the tools that you guys provided, I feel like I'm going to get into them a little bit more as I bring somebody on board, because we'll have to be on the same page. I can pretty much tell somebody that I want them to do that, because that's what I'm looking for. Knowing me, I'd rather not do those things.
Let's talk about some results you've seen from the work you've done. What's different about your business and about your life after the great work you've done implementing these systems?
I've had a lot more free time, I think Monish and I have worked on putting my schedule together in an appropriate way, finding the times that I'm most productive, and then leaving the times where I'm not least productive for the things that I like to do. So I think the schedule has helped me out, where it's like morning times are really good for me to be in the office, because I'm most alert, most kind of like I can sit there long enough, and then afternoons I'm out doing site visits and meeting people and enjoying that type of work. It's enjoyable work.
What does more free time look like? I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we were in San Diego, you just finished up a ski trip of enviable length, I
It
think.
was.
How many? Yeah.
It
So
was 10 days.
tell me about that.
Yeah,
10
no,
days.
it was, yeah. Having all the information in reports and all that kind of thing, so that anybody on any site can go and look at that thing. You're like, they don't need me there to answer that question anymore. So I went skiing for 9 days with my boys and a good friend of ours, and had, you know, 9 days or 7 days of skiing in a row. That was quite hard on my body. I've realized that I need to do a little more strength training there. Went to Africa for 10 days, and the wheels didn't come off. Have another week vacation coming up with the advanced group in Naples coming up. So I'm going to take a week there, and don't anticipate the wheels coming off there either. So being able to walk away with a system in place, with the schedule and the information for the guys that need it, has been super helpful. Like implementing these systems, dialing them in, becoming a little more on top of it. I'm able to get away. I'm able to take an afternoon off, and it's great.
And you've skied a lot. Where's the best place to ski?
Hands down, Jackson Hole.
Why is that? What makes it the best?
It's such a huge mountain, and there's stashes of powder even like 2 or 3 days after it snows. So that it's by far my favorite place.
Nice. Let's check it out. All right, so let's talk about the CEO Alliance a little bit. You've mentioned a couple of things about it, but how would you describe the CEO Alliance in your own words, and what has being in that group done for you?
In our group, we have a varying level of contractors. Some are starting to get their mind around pre-construction and understanding kind of the business side of things a little bit, and then there's been some that are home builders that are, doing 3-4 houses at a time. I'm gleaning a lot of information from those guys where they're struggling with something, and we kind of go back and forth and we discuss like, oh, how do you, we talk about sales, we talk about pre-construction, we talk about our process during pre-construction. Somebody's got an issue, we talk about that issue. How do you handle a guy that might be underperforming in the position they're in? Are they in the right position? And then helping those that are, still trying to understand it and going, okay, when I have to explain it, I have to think about it a little bit more. It's just, it's teaching somebody. I have to dial in my process a little bit more to kind of show them how to do it, which is, there's pluses and minuses to both, like if I'm teaching somebody else or helping somebody else, and I'm thinking about mine a little bit more and going, okay, how do I explain this properly? It's been a great experience in our group.
What would you say has been the best part about being in the CEO Alliance for you?
I think the advanced meetups are great because I think it's in person. The other groups are meeting, so there might be somebody in another group that does something similar to me that might have a huge amount of insight as to like, oh, how do you do kitchens and baths better? Or, there's other ones that are home builders, like how do you manage a new home build like better? How do you manage a large scale project better? So there's a ton of knowledge in those groups. I mean, you've seen it. Like you have hundreds of years of experience. And I think part of it is like, if I'm thinking about doing something, it's better to ask a question and be like, hey, have you been here before? What mistakes should I avoid? What should I do first? What should I do second? How do I not go down the same path you might have gone, or which path would you choose? It's invaluable.
Yeah, that what you just said there is so important. Is typically when we have an idea, our first thought is, well, how can I do this? Or how should I do this? And how might I go about this? And a better question would be, who can I talk to? Who can I ask? Who can I bounce this idea off? Maybe they can help me get the lesson without the scar, so to speak. That's a big mindset shift, especially for entrepreneurs. It's like, okay, who can I ask about this? Yeah, having a group of other people who you trust who are like-minded, all business owners, it's invaluable. Yeah.
The book, Who Not How, I'm going through it the second time right now. You've brought it up a couple times in this conversation, but it's been my mindset since a very young person of like, who can do this for me? How do I not do this? The mindset of like, we're better off together than we are apart. Who's my counterpart? Who can fill in that gap? Who is responsible? Who's done this before? Who's better at this than I am?
I wish I had embraced that when I was younger. Unfortunately, I was dumb and proud, and I thought only my ideas were good. I didn't avail myself of other people's wisdom. Sometimes, well, some of the best advice I've received, I still kick myself because I didn't take it. There are a couple of things a really smart guy told me almost 30 years ago. I'm like, that was the best advice I didn't listen to because I was like, well, I need to figure out how to do this. So yeah, it's like a cheat code for life, is thinking who, not how. It just opens up your world and helps you avoid the scars. A couple of questions here. I'm curious, what's something that you believe to be true about business that some people might think is unconventional, maybe even a little crazy? Anything come to mind?
Turning down work might be a little crazy, but I also feel like the clients that are paying me get a better service out of me and our team if we're picking the right clients, picking the right team to do the project. Like the experience is going to be way better. Really kind of narrowing down what we're really good at and not going out of our lane.
Figuring out what you're going to say no to is really smart. And unfortunately, a lot of people think I don't have the luxury. If somebody comes to me with a project or something that they'll give me money for, I have to take it. And that's just not the case. You get to decide who you get to work with. So I think that's great advice. Quick hit question for you that I like to ask everybody is, first of all, what's the area of Minneapolis? What town do you live in? And if somebody's visiting that town, what is the restaurant or bar they absolutely need to go to while they're there?
I would say if you're looking for a burger, it would be Parlor in North Minneapolis, the North Loop of Minneapolis. I would say it's probably got the best burger in town. Some people might debate that, but I think it's probably a pretty good consensus that that's the best place to go for a burger. We have a neighborhood restaurant that's not too far from us that we like to go hang out. It's called La Mesa. It's in Bryn Mawr. It's a nice, like Argentinian, Peruvian type food that's really kind of very authentic and got really good flavor to it.
There's an Argentinian place in Cincinnati in the Over the Rhine region, and great little place. My 18-year-old daughter says it's her favorite restaurant. Such a cool vibe. So I'll share my answer. So nobody's ever asked me this question, so I'm going to get my answer on the record where I would go. If you're ever in northern Kentucky, which is where I live, make your way to Covington, Kentucky, which is just on the other side of the Ohio River from Cincinnati. Go to Hotel Covington, and it is the best hotel, probably my favorite hotel to go to, and sit at the bar, and they have an incredible assortment of bourbons there, and eat at the restaurant called Coppin's Restaurant in there. And it is the best place to go if you're ever in northern Kentucky. So highly recommend it. All right, good stuff. So Nate, you've got an audience here of some construction entrepreneurs. Any tips or advice or anything that you want to share with them as we wrap up?
Build trust with your clients by showing them that you're trustworthy. Following through with what you say you're going to do, from as simple as showing up on time for your meetings, do what you say you're going to do, deliver on those deliverables. I think that's probably the biggest thing that anybody can do.
Good advice. Well, Nate, if folks want to follow you, connect with you, learn more about Operation Dignity International, where are some of the best places they can go?
My website would be a good place to start. Skäpar.net, SKAPAR.net. There is a website for ODI, Operation Dignity International.
And I'll look that link up and we'll put that in the show notes or the description of this video. So the website, I'll put the link in there for Operation Dignity International. Any place else you would recommend people go?
No, that'd be a good place to start. I think if there's any questions about projects or inquiries about looking to get hired, I am actively doing that now. So I think the job listing's going out today. So if you are in the area or wanting to move to Minneapolis, we could have start that conversation.
Sounds great. And then you mentioned Justin Landry,
yep,
who is with JL Freelance, and he helps recruit and helps construction business owners find talent. So he actually helped me add some people to my team as well. So
he's very good. Very good.
The assessment he does and his ability to read people has been described as kind of scary. Yeah, it's good stuff.
I agree.
So I'll include Justin's website, JL Freelance, in the comments as well. So great stuff, Nate. I appreciate you taking the time to be on here. Congratulations on the great work you've done and the results you've gotten. And I'll look forward to seeing you in Naples in a couple of months.
Definitely. I appreciate the time, Todd.
Hey, it's Todd here. And one more thing before you go. Look, if you own a construction business and you want to put the right systems in place so you can either scale it up, maybe you want to step away from it, be able to take a proper vacation, maybe you want to sell it someday, maybe you just want to have more freedom, or maybe make it more profitable, or maybe you just want to get out of constant firefighting mode and make your phone stop ringing all the time. You really have three options if you want to make a meaningful change in your business. Option one is do nothing. Status quo, keep doing the same things, getting the same results. Option two, you can DIY it. You can do it yourself. You can reinvent the wheel. You can read books, listen to podcasts, try to piece together a solution, use trial and error. Or option number three, if you want meaningful change, is to find a proven system that delivers the results you're looking for. Sort of like if you use software for project management or for your bookkeeping, I assume you probably didn't try to code your own software. You found a proven system that delivered the results you're looking for, right? Well, if you're looking for a proven system to systematize your business, we've helped hundreds of construction business owners implement our systems in their business, specifically our nail the handoff pre-construction process in their business. It works for home builders, remodelers, commercial general contractors. It also works really well for trade contractors like electricians, concrete contractors, site, utility, plumbing. And it's part of our Systematize Your Construction Business program. So if you want to see what systematizing your business looks like, what nailing the handoff looks like, and the positive side effects that come with that, then the next step would be to schedule a free business evaluation call with my team. And you could do that by going to constructionleadingedge.com/apply, APPLY, or just go to our website, constructionleadingedge.com, and tap the Apply Now button. You'll learn about the 5-step process we've helped hundreds of people implement to systematize their construction business. Most importantly, you'll get an objective third-party evaluation of your business to answer one really big question. Is your business designed to fail, or is it designed to succeed? So let me ask you this. If your business was unintentionally designed to fail, when would you rather find out? Now, while there's time to do something about it, or later on when it's maybe too late? This business evaluation call is totally free. There are no strings attached, no pressure. And it could be the best hour you've spent working on your business in a long time. So our schedule fills up pretty quickly. So if you're interested, go over to constructionleadingedge.com/apply, or go to constructionleadingedge.com and tap the Apply Now button to book your business evaluation call. Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you got value out of this podcast. If you could take a moment, if you did, and leave a rating or a review or share this with somebody who needs to hear it, I would appreciate it. Todd Dawalt from Construction Leading Edge. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.